This is Liberty Under Attack Radio, hosted by Shane and Matt. Your place for documented truth and where freedom is the only agenda. We must end the terror war.
Good evening and welcome. You're tuning into Liberty Under Attack Radio, broadcasting worldwide from various locations across the United States. If you're a frequent listener, I want to welcome you back to LUA Radio once again. If this is your first time, we're glad you stumbled across the show, and we want to give you a warm welcome. If you're a fan of liberty, you have come to the right place. Today is August 23rd, 2015, and I'm your host, Shane Radliff, and I'm joined by my co-host, Matt, from End of the Terror War. How's it going, brother? You there, Matt? Okay, don't know where Matt is. We'll move forward. You're there? Okay, go for it, Matt. What's new on your end? Any updates for the listener? You there, Matt? Okay, well, we'll move forward. Don't know what's going on with Matt. But boy, do we have a broadcast for all of you this evening. We'll be joined by Derrick Broze when we return from the first break, and we'll also be joined by Jaime Sherman from Anarchyball and the Voluntaryist comic book series when we return from the final break. This is a broadcast you need to listen to in its entirety. There have been some exciting updates this week for LUA, and if you've seen a couple of new posts on libertyunderattack.com, you may have an idea. But first, I'd like to play the short-spoken discourse in my most recent article titled, Adventures in Illinois Law, A Meeting with the State's Attorney. I had to attend a court hearing this past Tuesday in regards to last month's traffic stop over expired registration. Enjoy, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Producer, please cue up clip 1. Adventures in Illinois Law, A Meeting with the State's Attorney. Originally published at libertyunderattack.com on August 18th, 2015, and read to you by the author. Anytime someone drives on the government-monopolized roads, they risk arbitrary, coercive traffic stops by the road pirate police extortionists. Most traffic stops are for victimless crimes, and oftentimes they outright abuse the precautionary principle. These potentially violent encounters are deceptively labeled under the guise of public safety or the common good, but the real reason is extortion. Last month, I was pulled over on the way to work for expired registration and was slammed with another citation for driving without insurance since I didn't provide sufficient proof. Since the latter citation was a misdemeanor, I was ordered to appear in court today. Prior to the court date, I had looked through the Illinois compiled statutes and discovered that the driving without insurance charge would be dropped as soon as I provided proof that I was insured at the time. For the expired registration citation, the ILCS is pretty vague and listed no fine associated with it. I sincerely hope that I would not have to pay another fine in addition to the late registration fee. It was time to enter the belly of the beast, known as the McLean County Law and Injustice Center, and see what those who imagine themselves to be my rulers will extort from me this time. Inside the belly of the beast. I'd like to mention in passing that this will be my third time in the McLean County Law and Injustice Center in just 3 months, so you can only imagine how familiar I am with this building. I woke up today quite pissed off and began my journey to downtown Bloomington. I arrived an hour early and waited in the parking garage until 8:30 a.m. when I had to call the Van Buren County government in Michigan to pay for the other ticket that I received on my way to the Midwest Peace and Liberty Fest 3. If you experienced what I did today, you would hate the state with the same vehement passion that I do. Granted, it was for minor infractions, but it was pure extortion nonetheless, and I was forced to miss my very first higher-level indoctrination class of this semester. Coincidentally enough, I missed American government and politics. I walked into the building at 8:45 a.m., went through the metal detectors, and headed up to courtroom 3B. I checked in with the state's employee, and he instructed me to head into the courtroom. The state's attorney entered at the same time as me, and the running of citizens through the gauntlet of statism ensued. I witnessed a few speeding tickets for drivers under the age of 18, arbitrary paperwork violations, and a couple of people only coming to prove that they were insured at the time of the extortionist encounter. It was extremely dull, as this was just basic traffic court. Surprisingly, the government was on time for the first time in the history of humanity, and I was called up to speak with the state's attorney at 9 a.m. She looked over the tickets, and I showed her proof that I was insured at the time of the encounter, and they dismissed that ticket. I also provided her the proof that the day after I was pulled over, I went and got my registration renewed. I kissed ass and told her that I worked full-time and go to school, and that I had just simply forgotten about it, and apologized sincerely. Luckily, she dismissed that one too, thanked me for coming in as if I had a choice, and told me I was good to go. No additional fines, no court fees, and both citations off of my record. I won this battle with the state, but it was certainly a nuisance. Additionally, I didn't enjoy being there for a case that involved me. In my previous trips, I was either serving on a jury or just voluntarily spectating, and that was a completely different experience. Hopefully, I never have to enter a government building again, but I know that's a naive thought. After I completed my political field trips, or at least I thought I did, I was so done with every facet of government, and I was overjoyed to have had those completed and the articles up on my experiences. Barring any unfortunate circumstances in the future, I can now say that the Adventures in Illinois Law series is completed, and now I can focus on collaborating with other voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians, and start finding solutions using the economic means. You've just heard Adventures in Illinois Law, a meeting with the state's attorney, originally published at libertyunderattack.com on August 18th, 2015, and read to you by the author. And there you have it. So I am working on finalizing the anthology and audiobook of my Adventures in Illinois Law series, and that should be released in the next week. I'm just waiting on a custom photo for it at this point, and luckily I've got someone working on that. So it looks like Matt's connection did drop out there at the beginning of the show. Matt, are you there? I know you have some updates that you'd like to provide the listeners with.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go for it.
First, I created the Terror Industrial Complex timeline to give a comprehensive, source-based, educational walkthrough of where the roots of terrorist groups can be found, state terrorism policies enacted in foreign countries, how ISIS rose to power, and much more. I hope anybody interested will find it to be a useful tool in keeping themselves and others informed about the questionable sincerity of the so-called war on terrorism. Next up, I have an article on the freedom umbrella of direct action. The article above the list itself is my own perspective. Although the list has been a collaboration project between Kyle Reardon and myself, I've always been a strong advocate for direct action, which is classically identified as any action outside voting. However, I can happily announce that there are categories and subcategories available in the direct action list. I remember a caller asking me what direction is, preceding the LUA debate on protesting. Since that time, I've been able to clarify my stance on what means of protest I do support, which are consistent with economic means, as opposed to reformist protesting. I will happily go into further detail with experience and further education to reinforce and making my case for how one effectively protests as a means of direct action specifically. I am open for writing future articles to address what if our listeners and fans support me going forward with such a plan. Finally, to keep this as short as possible, in my humble opinion, direct action can be one of the most effective means of resorting to securing liberty for ourselves and others throughout the world. Instead of working against each other, Kyle and I have collaborated and bring you the direct action list. I hope you'll find it useful in making decisions based on economic instead of political means.
Okay, thank you very much, Matt. And I will say that Terror Industrial Complex timeline is very, very extensive. I actually really despised Matt for a couple of days when I was putting it up because it turned out to be, I don't know, it was a 2-night project. So yeah, it's very extensive. So if you're interested in the Terror Industrial Complex, it's a good place for you to go. And also on his umbrella of his article on direct action. Yeah, that's definitely a good list. I always hear from people, well, if we don't vote or if we don't protest, what can we do? And it's like, well, there's no excuse anymore. There's no excuse. The political means have showed their failures throughout the years, and there's a list of probably 30 things that you can do that are the economic means of making money rather than the failed political ones. So I definitely recommend you guys go check that out at libertyunderattack.com. The next update might surprise some of our frequent listeners, but we have had plans to expand the show for a while. Our goal is to put out as much quality material as possible, which means we'll have to have additional shows throughout the week. That could pose a potential problem, though. Come next January, I will be at Illinois State University full-time, while hopefully being able to work full-time, too. I'll be quite busy, and there are going to be some weeks that I just simply can't make it, but the show must go on. This past week, I put out a clarion call for folks that might be interested in joining Liberty Under Attack Radio as potential co-hosts. I honestly didn't expect to even get a response for a while, but we had 2 people that expressed strong interest. Both of them are here with us this evening. So first off, Stan, I want to welcome you on board. Definitely glad to have you on the LUA team. How are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, doing well, doing well. So Stan, first off, I remember you mentioning to me in the pre-show that you thought Bernie looked pretty strong for the 2016 election. That he has your full support, right? Or did I hear you incorrectly?
All right, he has my support as much as a Jew supports Hitler.
No, of course, he didn't say that. Of course, he didn't say that. So, Stan, why don't you start by telling the listeners a little about yourself, what your interests and specialties are, and what anarchic schools of thought you adhere to?
Mainly, anarchy in general, kind of evolved to that, as most people do, and kind of fixate on that. Primarily Christian anarchism, stuff like that. So that's my main school of practice, and then also survivalism. How to sustain yourself, all that fun jazz.
All right. Yeah, and I definitely know that your specialty is one of your specialties is survivalism. We'll definitely discuss that more later on in the broadcast. So I think for the benefit of the listeners and also for us as well, this is probably the most important question. What was your path to anarchism?
Really, it was kind of a odd thing of trying to prove other people wrong, being in the two-party system and just being like, no, you're wrong, and I'll find data to prove you wrong, and then finding data that proved what I thought was wrong, right, wrong. So it kind of came to this evolution of, okay, going from conservatism to libertarianism to all the way down the path, and then I realized, what? The hill that I was trying to climb up and fight, climbing up wasn't a hill at all. It was a cliff. So, it was, how the hell am I going to climb a cliff, in, reforming politics to what I want it to be, when I just give up on the cliff and walk away and do my own thing. So accepting that the state will never do anything that I would approve of. So, yeah.
Indeed. I think you touched on something interesting. I do want to kind of get into a little bit here. Now, Christian anarchism. I guess tell us a little about that. Because I know there's anarcho-Islam as well as I'm sure there's other religions like that too. But could you give us some information on Christian anarchism?
Well, the way I summarize it is, and the way I summarize a lot of religious anarchist sects is that it's accepting that no human being could rule over another human being at all. And accepting that, yeah, I might, choose, I choose to be a Christian, and this person might not choose to be. That's okay. But, I choose my ruler.
Yep. Okay.
In a way.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I guess like I said, you're as you said too, one of your specialties is survivalism. Is there anything else that you dabble around in your spare time that you enjoy researching or learning about?
Really, recently, it's kind of been a matter of looking into different types of permaculture and homesteading type stuff. Permaculture has kind of come into its own recently, and I've just been trying to catch up, There's just a ton of podcasts out there, There's Jack Spirko. He covers it in depth. Permaculture Voices is another that's exclusively permaculture. So if you're interested in that, check those out. They probably know more than me, but yeah,
so
those
first,
are.
Can you define permaculture for the listeners that might not know what that is?
Really, it's a division of agriculture that has kind of come into its own recently.